Why are you wasting your life? I'm not asking that in some fake deep way. I mean it seriously. Because most people watching this already know there's something they should be doing. Something real. Something that actually matters to them. Maybe it's a business. Maybe it's a channel. Maybe it's making money. Maybe it's getting in shape. Learning a skill. Fixing your attention span. Building a future you can actually respect. You already know what it is. The problem is not that you have no ideas. The problem is not that you've never thought about your future. The problem is that you keep living in the gap between knowing and doing. That gap is where people waste years. You think about what your life could look like. You imagine yourself finally locking in, finally taking things seriously, finally getting momentum, and in your head, it almost feels real. You can see it. You can picture the vision of yourself that actually stops messing around and builds something. But then that day ends, and nothing changed. You watched more videos, you thought more, you planned more, you scrolled more, you waited more. And that's what makes this so dangerous. Wasting your life usually doesn't look dramatic while it's happening. It doesn't look like a huge collapse. It looks normal, quiet, harmless. It looks like I'll start soon. It looks like I just need more time. It looks like I know I'll get serious soon. That's how people lose years without even noticing. Not because they're stupid, not because they're incapable, but because they keep delaying the life they already know they want. And I think deep down, a lot of you already know that. That's why this question hits so hard. Because if you truly had no ambition, this video wouldn't bother you. If you truly didn't care, you wouldn't even feel uncomfortable hearing this. But you do care. You do want more. That's exactly why it stings. You know there's more in you than you're doing right now. And if you know that, then at some point you have to ask yourself the question honestly. Why are you still wasting your life? The worst kind of wasting is not failing. Failing at least means you moved. Failing means you tried something. You put yourself in the game. You took a hit, learned from it, and now you have something real to build from. The worst kind of wasting is sitting there, fully aware that you want more, and you do nothing long enough that it becomes your personality. That's what destroys people. Because when you keep delaying what matters to you, it doesn't just cost you progress. It starts changing how you see yourself. You stop trusting yourself. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You don't. You say next week will be different. It isn't. You say this month you're going to lock in. You don't. Do that enough times and something ugly starts happening in your head. Your own words stop meaning anything to you. You become the kind of person who says a lot and does very little. And whether you admit it or not, that destroys your confidence. Real confidence is not built by thinking positive. It's not built by watching one more motivational video. It comes from advice, from seeing yourself do what you said you were going to do. That's why so many people feel weak. Not because they were born weak, not because they have no discipline in them, but because they've trained themselves into a pattern of hesitation. They've built a life where intention means nothing and action almost never comes. That's a horrible way to live, because even the smallest thing that starts to feel slightly heavy starts feeling heavy. Committing feels heavy. Focusing feels heavy. Everything feels bigger than it actually is, because you've spent so long standing still that movement itself starts to feel unnatural. And people call that being stuck. But a lot of the time, what they call being stuck is really just a long habit of avoidance. And I'm not saying this from some perfect position. I wasted around 3 years just thinking about starting. 3 years. Not building seriously, not properly trying, not really putting myself out there, just thinking, planning, imagining. Going over things in my head like one day I would magically become the version of myself that actually moved. I kept telling myself I would start when I was more ready, when I knew more, when I felt more certain. And the crazy thing is, while you're in that phase, it doesn't even feel like you're wasting. It feels almost responsible. It feels like you're being careful, like you're thinking about the long-term goal, like you're waiting for the right moment. But looking back, I can see it clearly now. I was wasting my time. And that's the part that bothers me. Because if I had started back then, even badly, even awkwardly, even with a terrible first attempt, I would be so much further ahead by now. I would have more experience in day trading, more reps, more confidence, more skill, more understanding, more subscribers on YouTube. I would already have gone through the beginner phase instead of spending years standing outside of it. That's what waiting steals from you. It doesn't just steal time, it steals the version of you that could have already existed by now if you just started earlier. That's a brutal thing to think about. All the progress you could already have, all the lessons you could have already learned, all the momentum you could have already be sitting on, all of that gets delayed every single day you decide to just think instead of act. And I know that's gonna hit some of you hard, because you're doing the exact same thing right now. You have something in your head that has been there for way too long. Maybe you've been about to start for months, maybe years. Maybe you keep telling yourself you're different, you have potential, you're going to do something with your life. But if nothing in your actions change, then all of that stays in your imagination. Potential means nothing if it stays in your head. Most people don't wait because they're lazy. They wait because they're scared. But they don't call it fear. They dress it up as smarter language. They say they're researching. They say they're planning. They say the timing isn't right. They say they need to figure things out first. And sometimes, sure, some planning matters, but a lot of the time, that whole process is just fear in a nicer outfit. Fear of looking stupid, fear of starting something and being bad at it, fear of making a channel and getting no views, fear of trying to make money and realizing it's harder than you thought, fear of telling people what you're working on and then having nothing to show for it, fear of becoming visible, fear of failing in public. That's why people wait, and the longer they wait, the smarter the excuses start sounding. That's the really dangerous part. Because once your excuses sound intelligent, it becomes very easy to live with them. You start saying things like, I'm just being realistic. No, a lot of the time you're not being realistic. You're protecting your ego. You're choosing a kind of pain that feels familiar. The pain of regret. The pain of staying the same. The pain of watching life move while you stay in the same place. People choose that pain because at least it doesn't embarrass them today. Starting comes with risk. Waiting comes with comfort. And most people are addicted to comfort, even when that comfort is quietly ruining them. And this matters even more when money is involved, because a lot of people say they want more wealth, but they never do anything that could realistically lead to it. They want money, but they don't want uncertainty. They want freedom, but they don't want risk. They want results, but they don't want the ugly stage where nothing is working yet. That makes zero sense. Money usually comes after value. Value usually comes after skill. And skill usually comes after being bad for a while. There is no way around that. If you want to build something, whether it's a channel, a business, a skill, some kind of income online, anything at all, there is a stage where you are unknown, unimpressive, inconsistent, awkward, and learning in public. That stage is not optimal, and the people who move ahead are usually not the people who felt the most ready. They're the people who got tired of waiting and decided that being a beginner was better than being stuck. And that's what changed me too. At some point, I got sick of my own hesitation, sick of living in this fake productive state where I was always thinking about the future but not building one, sick of knowing I wanted more and still moving like someone who didn't. And I think that's a moment a lot of people need to experience. Not more comfort, not more reassurance, not one more video telling them everything is okay. Sometimes you need a point where you look at yourself honestly and admit, this is not a motivation problem anymore. This is me refusing to move. And that refusal costs money. Because while you're hesitating, someone else is gaining reps. Someone else is posting. Someone else is learning. Someone else is failing faster. Someone else is getting better while you're still trying to feel ready. That's why waiting is so expensive. It's not just about the money you don't have today. It's about the experience you're not building, which means you're delaying the money you could have made later too. So when people say, I'm still young, I have time. Yes, maybe you do. But having time is only an advantage if you actually use it. If all you do is waste it, then that advantage turns into regret. Being young is exactly why you should start. This is the part that frustrates me the most. When you're young, this is exactly when you should be trying things. This is the cheapest time to fail. You probably don't have kids, you probably don't have rent crushing you, you probably don't have massive responsibilities yet, which means the consequences of trying and failing right now are lower than they might ever be. And still, so many people waste these years being careful. That's insane to me. This is when you should be experimenting, learning how money works, learning how to sell something, build something, focus, create, communicate, take risks, and recover from failure. This is when you should be finding out what happens when you actually try. Instead, most people spend these years waiting until later. Later when they feel ready. Later when they know more. Later when life is somehow magically clearer. But later usually comes with more pressure, not less. So they waste the easiest stage to begin, then act shocked when starting later feels harder. Of course it feels harder. You trained yourself into delay. You made hesitation feel normal. And once that becomes normal, wasting time stops feeling like an emergency. It just feels like life. That's terrifying. Because entire years can disappear like that. Not in one big dramatic failure, just in a long series of small choices that all felt harmless at the time. The real cost of wasting your life is not just lost money, not just missed opportunities, it's not even just regret. It's that you slowly become someone you yourself don't respect. That's the deepest cost. Because deep down, you know when you're avoiding your life. You know when you're capable of more than what you're doing. You know when you're spending your days in distraction, delay, entertainment, excuses, and cheap dopamine while pretending you still care deeply about your future. A part of you notices every single time. That's why wasting your life feels so heavy even when nothing bad is happening on the outside. Because that real damage is internal. It's the relationship you build with yourself. I want you to ask yourself these questions. Do you trust yourself? Do you respect yourself? Do you believe in your own words when you make a promise? If the answer is no, that didn't happen by accident. It happened because of repeated self-betrayal. That sounds harsh, but it's true. When you know what matters and keep turning away from it, you teach yourself that your own standards mean nothing. And once that becomes a pattern, life starts feeling empty in a very special way. Not because you lack potential, but because you're living below what you know is possible. That's one of the worst feelings there is. So what actually changes all of this? Well, I'll tell you right away. Not another perfect plan. Not another month of thinking. Not waiting until you've become a different person. What changes it is very simple, even if it's uncomfortable. You start. Before it feels clean, before it feels impressive, before you feel fully ready. You start while you're still uncertain. You start while your first attempt is still going to be clumsy. You start while part of you still feels stupid, because that's real life. The beginning is ugly for almost everyone. The difference is that some people accept that and move anyway, while others keep trying to negotiate with reality until years are wasted. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to lose more time to hesitation. I already knew what it felt like to look back and realize how much further ahead I could have been if I just started the idea when it first mattered to me. That regret is real. And if this video has done its job, then maybe it should make you feel some of that too. Not to make you hopeless, not to make you feel bad for no reason, but because sometimes the truth has to feel uncomfortable before it becomes useful. So I'll ask you one more time, why are you wasting your life? Why are you still waiting when you already know what needs to happen? Why are you acting like time is unlimited when you know it isn't? At some point, you have to stop asking what your life could become and start asking whether your actions actually match what you say and what you want. Because one day, this question won't feel philosophical anymore. It will feel personal. It will feel like something you should have answered a long time ago. And the most painful thought is never, what if I fail? It's why didn't I start when I already knew I should have? That's the real danger. Not failing, but knowing, waiting, and losing years while doing so.